Now to the Western Cape, who in 2024 has seen several underworld bosses emerging at the High Court. This as the state is targeting organised crime kingpins in the province. They're facing charges of attempted extortion, money laundering, fraud, as well as gang-related activity.
Alleged Western Cape gang boss Nafis Modak is accused number one in this case. He'll stand trial with 14 other co-accused facing a long list of charges that include murder, attempted murder, racketeering and money laundering.
When three of the biggest crime bosses in South Africa lock horns and fight for supremacy, it usually ends in and legal troubles. Mark Liffman, Ralph Stanfield, and Nafis Modak had a reputation of painting Cape Town red, disrupting its peace and calm, to serve their selfish interests and establish themselves at the peak of organized crime. They plotted against one another. However, despite their strengths as underworld figures, there was a chink in their armor, one that would ultimately bring down their respective criminal empires. Liffman, Stanfield, and Modak shared only their involvement in crime and their liberal use of violence to conduct illegal business. In every other aspect, including their lifestyles, upbringing, and public personas, they were vastly different. They also took distinct paths on their journeys to the pinnacle of organized crime in South Africa. Liffman was born in Cape Town in 1965 into a well-to-do Jewish family. His father was a businessman, and his mother was a keen golfer at King David Mowbray Golf Club, according to the SA Jewish Report. Although Liffman had a relatively comfortable childhood compared to most Cape Town gangsters, he showed an interest in making his own money from an early age. His entrepreneurial journey began with selling baked peanut clusters from his mother's kitchen at Rondebosch. Later, he ventured into the transportation business, purchasing vehicles to be used as taxis. He also opened a pie shop at Cape Town Central Station, earning from these various sources of income. Still, Liffman felt it wasn't enough. He decided to explore other ways to make money, unfazed by whether they were legal or not. Seeing that investing in real estate was lucrative, he became a big-time real estate magnate with an impressive portfolio. He also dabbled in horse racing until 2001, when the Jockey Club of South Africa banned him for allegedly intimidating the jockeys. Liffman didn't stop there, as he had a strong desire to amass as much wealth as possible. So, he got into the nightclub security business, where he allegedly sought payments from nightclub and restaurant owners for security services. The nightlife sector is a front for organized crime because most deals, assassination plans, and other criminal activities occur in nightclubs which are frequented by underworld figures. As the boss of nightclub security in various clubs, Liffman was both directly and indirectly involved in organized crime. He used this position to engage in protection rackets. A protection racket is a criminal activity where a group or individual extorts money from businesses or individuals by threatening them with violence or damage to their property, essentially protecting them from harm in exchange for regular payments. It's a form of organized crime where the victim is forced to pay for supposed security against threats that the criminals themselves may be creating. He also allegedly extended his tentacles to money laundering and violent crimes, including his influence in South Africa's underworld earned him the nickname the Don of Sea Point. Despite his powerful status in his country's crime world, Liffman didn't look like the typical gangster. He maintained a unique appearance, which involved him donning pinstriped suits and other corporate clothes with sunglasses. Hence, he was regarded as a gentleman gangster. The only thing that could those who didn't know him suspect he wasn't a conventional businessman was the entourage of bodyguards that followed him everywhere he went. Commenting on Liffman, Ryan Cummings, an organized crime expert who specializes in security risk analysis on the African continent, said, "Liffman projected himself as floating above the chaos of organized crime. He was flamboyant, dressed well, and looked after himself. He did not cut the figure of a typical South African gangster." Mr. Cummings stated in an interview with The Telegraph that Mark appeared as a financier for the bosses, adding that he is alleged to have played more of a facilitator role, the money man. Throughout his criminal career, Liffman was able to evade jail, despite facing several serious investigations and interrogations by the police. His first major arrest was in 2005 when he was accused of 7 boys, attempting to the man who brought the boys to him and disregarding the justice system. He denied having anything to do with the kids and was let off the hook after the state's case collapsed as a result of issues with the witnesses. Similarly, he faced several accusations of tax evasion, which he was able to shake off. The biggest legal trouble Liffman found himself in was being co-accused of the steroid king, Brian Weinstein, who made a successful career out of and illegally selling internationally. Weinstein, who previously lived in Ireland, was fatally shot 5 times at his home in Constantia, South Africa on August 18, 2017. He was sleeping beside his partner and his 2-year-old child when men stormed his house and opened fire on him. Weinstein had Israeli and South African citizenship, which enabled him to operate across countries with his steroid company, Axio Labs. The state accused Liffman of financing the after clashing with Weinstein over investments, claiming he felt he was getting greedy and decided to take him out. The arrest took place on December 23, 2020, 3 years after the supposed crime. Other prominent underworld figures arrested for being involved in the include Jerome Donkey Boysen, the leader of the Sexy Boys gang, and William Red Stevens, a former general of the 27's prison gang. The 3 men were granted temporary freedom by the Cape Town Magistrate Court in exchange for a bail of 100,000 rands. They were supposed to appear in court at a later date. During the investment feud between Liffman and Weinstein, Weinstein aligned himself with the 28's gang, which was headed by Ralph Stanfield, as he saw that he couldn't Liffman and his cohorts on his own. Associating with the 28s further worsened the situation, and it became a full-blown gang. While Stanfield was in Johannesburg, Liffman allegedly ordered a hit on him. Stanfield, who was multiple times, survived the assassination attempt. In retaliation, Weinstein arranged for Liffman's bodyguard to be kidnapped and However, his plan failed, and he ended up on the hit list. An audio clip, possibly recorded hours before Weinstein's reveals the raging malice between both men. The conversation was initially between Liffman and a second unidentified man. In the recording, which has now been removed from the internet, the second man tells Liffman that he's on the way to see Brian. However, Brian Weinstein is right there with him, and Liffman doesn't realize it. Liffman proceeds to say to the man, "I warned you, okay? Remember that, including that fat bleep that you're going to see now, that piece of peasant bleep." On hearing the insults, an infuriated Weinstein can no longer keep quiet. He yells at Liffman and insults him back angrily, vowing to destroy him. This was the last known conversation between both men. After Weinstein's Stanfield, his associate, decided to take over his steroid company, Axio Labs. In a phone conversation recorded between Stanfield and Weinstein's former security guard, Stanfield informed him of his plans to assume ownership of the company. The anonymous guard had used his position and closeness to Weinstein to help his boss's enemies to plan the assassination from the inside. After being arrested in connection to he decided to become a first state witness in the trial in exchange for his freedom or a reduced sentence. It was in this trial that he exposed Stanfield's interest in taking over the steroid company. According to the witness, although Stanfield didn't participate in the he wanted to take advantage of the situation. Stanfield felt entitled to the company because he had made significant investments when Weinstein was alive. Naturally, Liffman would have wanted the company for himself, but the ambitious Stanfield had his own plans. When Stanfield asked the witness for specific information about the company and how much the police knew about the case, the witness lied about certain details. When the court asked him why he lied, he said he did it out of loyalty to Liffman and Boysen, the chief architects of Weinstein's, and because it seemed Stanfield was determined to force the information out of him. He told the court, "I refused to provide Stanfield with manufacturer or other information as I did not want to do business with them. Stanfield telling me I'm taking over Axio Labs felt like an instruction." The witness also told the court that Stanfield apparently knew before the of Weinstein that the electric fence at Weinstein's house was faulty. He explained that an alleged 28's gang member who worked at Weinstein's curio shop heard a 26's gang member talking about it. The 28's gang member then informed alleged 28's gang boss, Stanfield. So, Stanfield began making plans to become the new steroid king. According to the witness, Stanfield may have even known that he was involved in the assassination. Despite rising to compete with the likes of Liffman, Stanfield had a more complicated journey to the top of the food chain. Stanfield was born in 1979 and was raised by a single mother in Beacon Hills, Mitchell Plains. He claimed to have run feeding schemes early on in his life. However, he was bound to engage in crime. His uncle was Colin Stanfield, the alleged leader of the gang The Firm, who in the 90s was under investigation for mass mandrax smuggling, along with Indian lord Vicky Goswami. Ralph's uncle Colin was jailed back in 2002 for tax evasion. He was subsequently released from custody as he was terminally ill and died of lung cancer in 2004. Ralph's name was well known to police investigators, who suspected he'd picked up from where his late uncle left off. He was also involved in various crimes, including illegally receiving licenses via corrupt cops. Stanfield gave the public the impression that he was a regular construction worker. However, as the 28's gang boss, he was involved in various violent and financial crimes. His wife, Nicole Johnson, who studied for a law degree for 3 years, was his backbone in his criminal activities. The duo were a power couple in the underworld, dealing with big-time corrupt businessmen and politicians. They earned millions of rands after becoming associated with the construction of the 3 billion rands King Air Industria project adjoining Cape Town International Airport. An investigation reveals that the couple's construction and business empire became involved in the project through a so-called community-based organization known as Cape Flats Liberators, which in reality was a shady business entity. This multi-billion rand development became one of their largest legitimate revenue streams. The couple were also mentioned in the corruption charges against Malusi Bui, a big South African politician who was formerly part of the mayoral committee. Bui was allegedly involved in an illegal tender-for-profit enterprise that the state claims was headed by Stanfield and Johnson. The tenders in question were estimated to be around 1 billion rands. According to the allegations, Bui is said to have accepted gratifications from Ralph Stanfield in order to carry out or perform certain powers, duties, or functions arising out of his employment as members of the mayoral committee in order to act by using their influence with others to obtain tenders for the benefit of Ralph Stanfield. Stanfield's wife also ran 2 beauty stores. One was in the Cape Town suburb of Greenpoint, and the other was in the city's Canal Walk shopping mall. These could have easily been a front for money laundering. Furthermore, Stanfield was involved in the nightclub security business. He used his influence as the director of security in one club in Cape Town called Ayepiep Lounge and Lifestyle to establish his wife as its general manager. After the co-owner of the club cried to the police that Stanfield was trying to dominate the club, Stanfield ultimately beat him in the case and bullied him into selling his shares in the business. Then, he made his mother-in-law own half of the club. Despite this daring feat, he probably didn't have as much influence as Liffman and Modak in the nightclub security sector. Modak was one of the biggest names in the nightclub security business in Cape Town, which was a tough position because he was in a violent competition with Liffman. This culminated in the nightclub security war, with Modak and his goons on one end, and Liffman and Donkey Boyson on the other. Unlike Liffman, who found success in various crimes, Modak seemed to have been fated to be a nightclub security boss. He started by serving the big dogs of the nightlife sector before eventually taking the reins of the protection industry. All these changed when Liffman and Boyson decided to take over the nightclub security sector, forming a formidable force that Modak decided to fight with all he had. Liffman first met Boyson when he purchased 3 properties in Delft and began receiving threats from gangsters. It was then that Liffman is said to have sought the services of Boyson, the alleged leader of the Sexy Boys gang in Cape Town. According to a retired police officer, Jerome and Mark were tight property magnates for a very long time, using the Sexy Boys to strong-arm people at auctions to keep bids. Liffman, Donkey, and business partner Andre Naud soon became powerful in the nightclub security sector and enjoyed a near monopoly on private protection in Cape Town after rival security boss Cyril Bika was killed in his silver BMW by a gunman on a motorbike in 2011. Bika was Modak's associate, and his death weakened Modak's influence in the security business. In 2017, Modak started attempting to regain control of bouncer operations in Cape Town, leading to a feud between the rival security outfits. Colin, the younger brother of Donkey, betrayed his brother and moved across to Modak's operation, which further intensified the rivalry. Assassination attempts became an occupational hazard for anyone involved in the nightclub security business. In 2018, Donkey survived being shot by 2 gunmen inside a restaurant in Kilse River. This was the 6th attempt on his life in the space of a year. Meanwhile, Naude was shot at when leaving a restaurant with his son in 2019. Donkey survived another hail of bullets at a funeral at Durbanville Memorial Park in Cape Town in 2020. Additionally, Williams Red Stevens of the 27's gang, which Donkey is said to have enlisted as muscle against Modak, was gunned down outside his home in Rembrandt Street, Kraaifontein, in February 2021. When questioned about his feud with Liffman, Modak said he became enemies with Liffman after the latter tried to purchase 2 of Modak's properties at an auction in March 2017. Modak claimed he had already secured buyers for the properties, along with letters to show the auctions had been canceled. However, Liffman insisted he would buy the properties for less than their value before allegedly pointing a gun in Modak's face. Modak said after the confrontation, he received information that certain nightclub owners were not satisfied with the security Liftman was providing them in Cape Town's central business district. So, he decided to take over the security at 80% of the nightclubs in Cape Town. His decision was partly fueled by Liftman's attempts to intimidate him and buy his properties. Modak alleged that after he mediated the takeover of security at Cape Town's nightclubs from Liftman and Boyson in 2017, he was called into a meeting with Veery, who was the head of detectives in the Western Cape at the time. Veery is said to have questioned him about his intentions with Cape Town's nightclubs, with Modak claiming that he wanted to make the clubs drug-free. Furthermore, Modak stated that Veery instructed him to split the nightclub security with Liftman 50-50, which he refused. He said before leaving the meeting, Veery told him, "You're either with us or against us." During Liftman's bad blood with the younger Modak in 2017, he appeared to have come to terms with his fate. He told journalist Karen Dolly that his opponent was on a self-destruct mission. "This might just play itself out as it does in nature," he said, adding, "The strongest lion wins, and the old lion wanders off into the abyss." And the cycle continues. In the months leading to November 2024, hitmen began stalking Liftman, who reportedly had a 10 million rands bounty on his life. However, they found it difficult to pull off the hit, as Liftman was heavily invested in security, with armed bodyguards following him everywhere he went. Yet, the 57-year-old crime boss was alone on November 3rd, 2024, at Garden Route Mall in George Western Cape. While he was walking back to his car, armed men in a white Volkswagen Golf opened fire on him and zoomed off, killing him in broad daylight. Liftman's death came just one day before he was expected to return to court for his trial in the Weinstein murder case. He was the fourth person out of 14 people accused in the case to be murdered. Due to his death, the trial was adjourned to a later date. The two hitmen suspected to be involved in Liftman's assassination, Johan Jacobs, 53, and Gert Johnny Bezuidenhout, 37, were arrested 5 hours later. They had been driving between Willowmore and Uniondale with disguises of dresses, bras, and wigs in the boot. The suspects appeared in the George Magistrates Court on November 5, 2024, facing charges of premeditated murder. Ultimately, they were thrown behind bars for the meantime, as investigations were ongoing and their bail applications were postponed to 2025. Liftman's murder is said to have triggered a rise in gangland violence to fill a power vacuum left by his demise. It's currently unclear who was behind the attack, as Liftman had numerous enemies in Cape Town. According to Mr. Cummings, the crime expert, it seemed he was someone who loved having power and influence, but he had a mean streak. He was someone who had many, many enemies. Commenting on Liftman's death, an old acquaintance of Liftman from Cape Town said, "He came across as a regular guy, but you could sense there was a volatile streak. He was friendly, but there was something unpredictable about him." Another friend from Johannesburg added, "He was a likable guy, charming even, but obviously he was someone you'd never go into business with. People were scared of him. When he spoke, people listened." Several gangsters could have wanted Liftman, including Stanfield and Modak, and there were several theories linking them to the assassination. However, Stanfield had his own troubles at the time of Liftman's. Stanfield, his wife Nicole, and two other men were arrested in 2023 for car theft. The couple allegedly stole a BMW worth 326,202 rands from a Palm Springs security complex in Milnerton on November 24, 2022. Stanfield and the two men also face a count of robbery each for allegedly assaulting the owner of the vehicle and taking the victim's cell phone worth R1,225. Meanwhile, the 28's gang boss and his wife were also accused of fraud for allegedly misleading a police officer into believing that the BMW belonged to them. It was alleged that Nicole arranged to have the owner of the vehicle killed by a man named Brandt, who was also arrested. While in police custody, Stanfield reportedly attempted to pull the strings in the case to his favor through his younger brother, Kyle. A search warrant was subsequently issued for a location in Claremont where Kyle was found. Police claimed he was found in the garage and was in possession of a letter written by Stanfield asking if video footage of his arrest had been deleted. According to the police spokesperson Brig Patelwa, the investigation teams had arrested a 34-year-old suspect for defeating the ends of justice. With the investigation unfolding, the suspect was also charged with possession of presumably stolen property, said police spokesperson Brig Novella Patelwa. In the house located in Claremont and linked to a suspect in custody for other serious offenses emanating from ongoing major investigations, the cash seized was found in a concealed storeroom in travel cases with 16 high-end watches and empty 9mm cases, he added. Kyle was later released on 10,000 rands bail after appearing at the Belleville Magistrates Court. Meanwhile, Stanfield is locked up in a cell in Branville Prison as the case proceeds, while Nicole is currently in a cell in the Polesmore prison. Since the couple were arrested, the case has evolved from the original charges of car theft and related offenses to include unrelated charges of extortion, robbery, fraud, assault, and even Stanfield is currently facing charges of being involved in the of former gang boss Rashid Staggy of the Hard Livings gang, who was murdered outside his Salt River house on December 13, 2019. He is also facing allegations of being involved in the Bowie corruption case. Stanfield allegedly paid for Bowie's children's education to gain favors from the politician. Furthermore, Stanfield is said to have bribed one of Bowie's lawyers with a Rolex worth 690,000 rands. Both Stanfield and his wife are reportedly having a hard time in police custody, with the couple battling with health issues. Ralph claims to have trouble sleeping, and Nicole previously had tuberculosis, which required medical attention. Modak's fall from criminal glory isn't so different from that of Stanfield. Modak's chosen line of work has caused him to be arrested multiple times in his lifetime. However, his first major arrest occurred in 2018 when he was charged with extortion. He faced other charges as well, but managed to get away with no jail term due to legal delays and the lack of substantial evidence. Modak probably took his violent reputation one step further when he allegedly assassinated Charles Kinnear, a senior police officer, in front of his house. Kinnear had been investigating him and other gangsters for some time. Taking out Kinnear proved to be a mistake he may live to regret, as Kinnear was a powerful figure in the police force. After arranging such a high-profile hit, some gangsters would have decided to lay low for a while. However, Modak was no chill guy. He made further attempts at eliminating criminal defense attorney William Booth. Booth was outside his home when men opened on him. Fortunately, he was able to escape unharmed. The police later found out that Modak had intercepted Booth's calls to enable him to monitor him and carry out the assassination. Modak was arrested for his alleged involvement in the assassination of Charles Kinnear in 2021, 2 years after the incident. Although Modak was able to escape conviction in the past, he is now finding it hard to shake off the charges relating to Kinnear's. Currently, he's facing 124 charges, including the alleged of Kinnear, attempted murder of Booth, money laundering, tax evasion, and other serious allegations. The court has also questioned Modak on his suspected involvement in Liftman. In December 2024, his legal team filed a motion for the court to drop the charge of Kinnear. The motion was dismissed. So there's a big chance that Modak may spend the rest of his life in jail for numerous acts of violent crime. As tough as the gangsters of Cape Town may seem, there's usually two destinations, either 6 feet under or behind bars. Liftman ended up taking the first route, while Stanfield and Modak are likely to get the latter consequence. All three crime bosses had fought for supremacy in Cape Town's underworld, greedily trying to seize everything. However, they were ultimately left with nothing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.